You have undoubtedly heard of the incredibly famous luxury car company Rolls-Royce. For over a century, owning or even riding in a Rolls-Royce has been considered the absolute height of prestige, wealth, and power. But you may be wondering, who was the mastermind behind these incredible and now world-renowned vehicles? Before there was Rolls-Royce, the Royce family were simple flour millers in the rural town of Alwalton, England. Parents James and Mary had 5 children, including the youngest, Frederick Henry Royce, who was born in 1863. Although James and Mary were hard workers, times were tough for their young family, and in 1867 they filed for bankruptcy and moved to London in hopes of a better life for their children. Sadly, James Royce passed away in 1872. And in order to survive, all 5 children, including 9-year-old Henry, were forced to work as opposed to attend school. Young Henry was a hard worker and proved valuable in scaring birds away from local farms, selling newspapers, and delivering telegrams. However, although Henry was not able to attend school in his early years, by the age of 15, it was clear that he had an aptitude and passion for academics and set to learning as much as he could about a variety of subjects. He excelled at algebra and electrical engineering, as well as the French language. Although his aunt was funding his educational pursuits for a few years, he had to quit after only 3 years because of a lack of money. By this time, Henry was 18 years old and decided to get a job at a tool manufacturer in Leeds, but he only worked there for a short time before landing a job in London at the Electric Light and Power Company. At only 22 years old, Royce decided he wanted to be an engineer and opened a company, F.H. Royce & Company, with a friend and fellow engineer, Ernest Claremont. The 2 young engineers were nothing if not hard workers, and they spent the first few years after their company's inception working tirelessly to create products such as doorbells, light bulbs, and other domestic electric necessities. The company did well and began to expand. And while they were doing well creating at-home products, Henry's passion was pulling him in another direction. Henry Royce was extremely interested in automobiles. However, it wasn't until he met his future partner, Charles Stuart Rolls, that he actually began working towards creating the company which would be called Rolls-Royce. Charles Rolls was born in 1877 in London, and his early life was much different than Henry's. As Charles was born into an upper-class family, he had every opportunity to develop his enthusiasm for mechanical engineering and attended Trinity College in Cambridge to perfect his skill set. He was known around the campus as Dirty Rolls, as he was constantly taking apart and putting back together motor cars. In fact, he was the first in his class to even own a car. Charles used his family money to open one of Great Britain's first automobile dealerships in 1903, which he called C.S. Rolls & Co. He did extremely well importing and selling cars from and around Europe. And during this time, Henry Royce was working on building his first motor car from scratch, with only his love for mechanical engineering to guide him. By 1904, he was driving his first 2-cylinder Royce automobile. Interestingly, when Royce made 2 more successful cars, he gave one to his business partner, Ernest Claremont, and sold one to a shareholder, Henry Edmonds, who would eventually bring Rolls and Royce together. At the Midland Hotel in Manchester on May 4, 1904, the world of automobiles changed forever when the two met for the first time to discuss Royce's creations. Before the two decided to officially go into business together, the original agreement was that Rolls would sell Royce's cars from his London dealership. It's important to understand that at the time, Rolls was only able to sell foreign vehicles, and he was wildly excited about the prospect of selling locally made vehicles. The two couldn't have been more different in age, class, and even knowledge of the craft. However, it was soon quite clear that their differences were what made them such an iconic and dynamic pair. Both men were extremely enthusiastic about the partnership, but it wasn't until 1906 that the company Rolls-Royce was actually founded. That year released the famous 6-cylinder Silver Ghost, known almost immediately as the best car in the world. Although the car did speak for itself and was expertly crafted, it's also crucial to understand that part of its immense success on the market was due to the marketing and publicity work of Claude Johnson, Rolls' other business partner. He ensured that the world knew not only that the Rolls-Royce cars were impressive, but that they were the best-made automobiles in the world. In fact, Claude was so important in the early success of the company that many started to say he was the hyphen in the name Rolls-Royce. Over the next 2 decades, the three men worked hand in hand to ensure that their automobiles truly were the best in the world, and that everyone knew it. During this time, Henry Royce was often ill due to the fact that he was working so hard that he often forgot to eat and take care of himself. But his physical health was the last thing on Royce's mind, as he continued to create the most innovative cars in the world. And even though their team was growing, every design, adjustment, and idea had to be approved by Royce himself. His perfectionism was daunting for his employees, but it led to some incredible creations. And every vehicle they made was flawless, reliable, durable, and beloved by all who drove them. Because their automobile business was a wild success, Rolls often used his earnings to fund his other favorite hobby, flying. While Rolls loved to fly, he also wanted to start building aero engines as well as motor cars. However, Royce was less than excited about the idea, as his sole passion was the cars themselves. Charles Rolls decided to buy his own plane and was the first man to ever fly directly over and back across the English Channel. But sadly, it was his passion for flight that led to his untimely death at only 32 years old in a crash in 1910. After Rolls' death, Royce continued to focus his energy on the company they had created together and never changed the name in respect of Rolls' legacy. And although Charles Rolls was never able to see his vision come to light, the company actually did begin making aero engines at the start of the First World War. At this time, Royce designed the Eagle and built enough of the aircraft that they made up over half of the entire fleet of the Allied forces. The Eagle also made the first transatlantic flight, as well as the first flight from England to Australia. So it's safe to say that Royce's lack of passion for flight did little to diminish his engineering genius. Through the 1920s, it was clear that Royce's health was failing. However, the dedicated designer and craftsman did not let it slow him down at all. In 1931, Royce purchased a competing company, Bentley. The Rolls-Royce engineers then took the best parts of each automobile style and created something new. The story goes that the designers brought the idea to Royce, as they did with everything. And although they assumed he would be apprehensive, Royce was quite excited about the idea. It's said that Royce was actually drawing a sketch of the project that he handed to his maid to be delivered to the factory just moments before he passed away. When he died, Henry Royce was 70 years old. His incredible work ethic and innovation led him to not only create the best and most prestigious cars on earth, but also to do so until his very last breath. Although what Royce did for the motorcar industry is undeniable, it's also crucial to understand his role in the airline industry. Rolls-Royce was one of the leading manufacturers of aero engines throughout the entire 20th century, and by 1987, they were the only British company that provided engines for land, sky, and water. With the new millennium approaching, there was a drastic change at Rolls-Royce. In 1998, the company was officially sold to Volkswagen, a German automobile company. However, the rights to the designs and the names were actually sold to BMW, who took full control of the company in 2003. BMW was already working side by side with Rolls-Royce in the years leading up to the purchase, providing parts and even entire engines. And most reports state that the transition of ownership was incredibly smooth. In fact, many Rolls-Royce lovers didn't even notice that the cars were now being made by a different company. Today, they have over 130 dealerships in over 40 countries, so it's safe to say that BMW has done well with the Rolls-Royce brand. Rolls-Royce cars are still considered some of the best made and most luxurious cars in the world, as well as the most expensive. Among their current models, a new Rolls-Royce will cost you anywhere from $350,000 to $600,000. Even with these almost unbelievable price tags, the company is growing. In 2021, they sold more cars than they ever have before. And as of February of 2023, the company Rolls-Royce Holdings has a net worth of $11.31 billion. Although the style of the Rolls-Royce cars has changed and adjusted with the times, they are still some of the most durable, reliable, and gorgeous cars on the road. In fact, more than 65% of all Rolls-Royce cars ever made are in complete working order. And one aspect that car lovers absolutely adore about Rolls-Royce is that they have stayed true to the original style of the vehicles and have an old-fashioned luxury that no other brand offers. It's also hard to believe that this multi-billion-dollar company that is known on every corner of the earth was started by a poor boy from the outskirts of the English countryside. But that is exactly what happened. Young Henry Royce, with almost no education to speak of, found his love for engineering and the automobile, alongside his partner Charles Royce, with whom none of this would likely have been possible. He created the most beautiful and well-made cars ever made. Hungry for another fascinating business story? Click on the following video to hear the crazy story about the poor refugee who created Patek Philippe.